Europe, looking at various places, and settled on Lithuania. And really it was that we'd struggled to find a palace that we thought we could dress as Buckingham Palace. And then we decided that we would build, and build big, and build a courtyard as well as all of the wonderful sets that Taff has designed. And at that moment we went back to Lithuania because we'd worked there before. We made Elizabeth there and we'd made POW there, so we knew that there were great crews there that would be able to work with us and help set that up. It became increasingly a precinct show, and we went outside the four walls of the palace less and less because Vilnius is so unlike England. But in a way I quite like that, because I think what's interesting about the world is the way that you've got this extraordinary and rich precinct that is cocooned from the rest of the world. If you go on Google Earth and you look down on Buckingham Palace, it seems to sit in this area of green that is its own timeless world, and the rest of England almost doesn't exist. And so I quite like the fact that ultimately we stayed within the walls of the palace.
In episode 5, there is quite a long sequence involving an Indian state visit. And when I read this, you don't really give it a second thought. We're going to need, 30 or 40 Indians as extras. And you'd think pretty much anywhere in the world you wouldn't have any problem. In Lithuania, in Vilnius, there were 3. The guy that played the Indian president was an actor. And he came over for a couple of scenes and told us that he had quite a large extended family and enough friends to fill the banquet. So we had to ship in, I think, 20 Indians in for the dinner. So that was a challenge.
Source of investment, of inspiration, and of ideas.
There is a sequence in episode 5 where the Indians exchange gifts with the royal family. And the art department had great difficulty finding, ethnic Indian gifts, and the only place they could find them was at the local Indian restaurant. So there were some silver chairs and a few, sacred bulls and 2 elephants. Yeah, it came from the Indian restaurant. One of the biggest difficulties with shooting exteriors in a place like Vilnius is matching it for London. And there were sequences in the script where we needed a film premiere in Leicester Square, office block where the king comes to give some business award. So one's really limited with the locations. Obviously, there are new office blocks and, various modern buildings, but one has to be really careful about how you choose your angles and, the size of the lens and so on and so forth. And you have to hide a lot of stuff with extras and various props to make it look like London. I think there is one English taxi in the whole of Vilnius. So that taxi was used on a number of different occasions to hide, Lithuanian signs and, various Lithuanian objects. Coronation presented quite a big challenge because in Lithuania, all the churches are either Russian Orthodox or Catholic. And, it's impossible really to find a cathedral or church that matched in any way, shape or form Westminster Abbey. So the whole sequence was shot on a stage with green screen, and the backgrounds have been matted in to make it look like Westminster Abbey, and I think it worked really well.
Well, Daddy will be pleased at least, you and I. He'd like that.
Jane loses, he can't find a date.
Yeah.
You'll find someone. You will. You'll find someone who cares about you as you really need them to.
Stop the car. I'm getting out. Ellie, I'm sorry. Can you do it without me? Just be radiant for me, will you?
What? What are you doing?
Get me back to the palace.
We managed, in the footage you will see, we managed to find coronation robes for the Queen and robes for the 2 archbishops. Then we dressed the peers. We didn't have as many as that, but we tried to get them looking as near as that as damn it. Our problem is that now you cannot get ermine. Ermine now is in very short supply because I don't think the animal that turns white in winter, I don't think it turns white in winter now because we don't have the winters. But this has got real ermine tails in it. This is a bit of real ermine, but this is fake, especially for television. The crown is the St Edward's crown, which the monarch is crowned in, but she doesn't walk out of the Abbey in that. That stays in the Abbey and is taken back to the Tower when the coronation is over. The monarch walks out in the imperial state crown, which you see when he's on the balcony. It's the one with the great big Black Prince's ruby and the huge diamond in the front. The crowns had to be of a very high standard of replication because of high-definition television. You couldn't have anything that looked too theatrical. The coronets are carried, and when the king is crowned, every peer in the Abbey puts his crown on and shouts, "God save the King." This is the coronation robe that she walks out of the Abbey with. When she walks into the Abbey, she wears a red cloak. When she walks out of the Abbey, she wears a purple cloak. So in our film, we've done the same. We have Richard walking in a huge red cloak, which is carried by 6 pages, and he walks out wearing this crown and a purple cloak. The dresses, we tried to replicate the sort of richness of a coronation dress because it would be covered in embroidery. Most of the dresses are specially designed and specially hand embroidered. As we couldn't afford that, we tried to find dresses that looked as if they'd had a lot of hand embroidery and a lot of money spent on them. These are actually bridal dresses. This is the Queen's dress. They all tended to have sleeves in because they're inside the church. They can't be strapless or low décolletage. And the Queen, she has the Order of the Garter, and the Garter goes from over the left shoulder to the right side. All other orders are worn on the right shoulder over to the left side. These are personal orders given out by the sovereign to the royal family. Only members of the royal family wear these orders, and they're generally, there's a picture of past royalty inside these little cameos. This is our representation of the king's robe for when he walks into the Abbey before he's crowned. It is supposedly a deep crimson. It has the ermine cape. In reality, it would be a real ermine cape with many more tails on than this, but we couldn't find one. So we've had to sort of make it up a bit. The king wears the garter sash underneath this robe, and he also wears the garter chain on top of the robe, which is secured on the shoulders with satin ribbon loops. That's to stop the chain falling down to make it look much more attractive. It is tremendously heavy, and he can't move without the help of 6 pages to carry it for him, because it just sort of pulls you over almost when you move forward. All the braiding on it is gold bullion braid. Probably on the real one it's of a much better quality, but it's basically the same principle. It's braid laid onto velvet. I don't quite know how long this train is. It is quite long, but not as long as the original. In our film we've used the uniform, a guard's uniform, but nobody really knows what the next king will wear underneath his coronation robe. In 1937, I think, the king wore, we think it's the frock coat of an admiral of the fleet, but we're not sure, because there's very little colour representation left. So we just use red with a garter sash with all the orders, just to make it look more luscious. We had no time to make anything, and certainly we had no money to make anything, because to make something like this now would cost so much money. I really wouldn't like to hazard a guess. Just the sheer weight of fabric to start with costs a lot of money, and then having it made, I think if it hadn't been in the costume houses, we wouldn't have had a coronation, to be quite truthful.